The Souls-like debate has claimed yet another victim, and this time it's the Monkey King himself. Like me. I'm MTK, and with the breakout success of Black Myth Wukong, the accusation, or question rather, of is it a Souls-like has become a topic of discussion, as it almost always does anytime a game is released that is even suspected of being ranked among that sacred order. The term Souls-like is about as clear as the glass on your grandpa's large sauna, minus the naked men. Probably. But you get the point. We need a clear definition, something that we can clearly gauge a game by to tell if it is worthy of this ultimate accolade. Now, many different metrics have been proposed over the years. Everything from a stamina bar to the art style have been propped up as the genre's champions. In this video, I'm going to throw my hat in the ring and offer the key points that I believe make up a Souls-like, as well as go over some of the popular opinions that I disagree with and why. I'm sure I'll catch some flack for this since there isn't much in the Souls community that ruffles feathers more than this topic right here. Except maybe the cardinal sin of ranking DS1 or Bloodborne below 1 or 2 in a Souls ranking list. So comment below if you agree or disagree so we can get the lashings out of the way. So let's start by going over some of the popular metrics that I believe don't quite meet the mark. First off, let's start with art style. As with most of these that I'll be going over, this is definitely an element that adds to the unique feeling and immersion of a Souls game. But it doesn't really define a Souls-like because it's not really unique to the genre. This is where I think we have to make a distinction between a part of a Souls-like and a key part of a Souls-like. Art style is absolutely a beloved part of the genre, but I don't believe it plays enough of a role to be considered as part of the foundation. Not to mention, if you consider art style a mainstay of the Souls genre, it leaves very little room for creativity and innovation, which the genre desperately needs to be able to continue forward. Now, what about difficulty? This is another one that is often proposed as being part of the DNA of a Souls-like. And as much as this might hurt some feelings, the Souls genre did not pioneer the feeling of wanting to smash your controller. Did they perfect it? Perhaps. But hard games have existed for decades. Now, what makes a Souls game hard is a more likely contender. The mechanics put in place by FromSoft that has produced so many broken monitors and flipped chairs have a much stronger case, but I'll get to that later. Just know that difficulty in and of itself is only telling part of the story. The true culprit is not as surface level as simply saying the game is hard. Now, how about the lack of guidance and ability to wander aimlessly with no direction or hope? I will admit this is probably the strongest point out of the ones I disagree with. But again, I think it fails the uniqueness test. But most importantly, if you were to remove that aspect from the Souls games, I would argue that the overall feeling would remain intact. Some would argue it would even improve the games. So although it's close, I still think it falls short. So what is a Souls-like then? I mean, am I really just going to sit here and tear down everything and offer no actual solutions? Let me start by saying what I'm about to lay out is not perfect, because by nature this is mostly about opinions. It's subjective. But I think that this will at least give a good starting point and is pretty accurate in determining what a Souls-like is. Here are the three key parts I believe make a Souls-like. Number 1. A heavy emphasis on dodging or parrying. Probably the thing that jumps out the most at you when you play a Souls game is the fact that if you don't dodge or parry, you will die. A lot. And this is what I mentioned before about the mechanics behind the difficulty. It's not really the fact that the game is hard. It's the reason behind why it's hard. Now, I know what you're thinking. Souls games didn't invent dodging or parrying either. And you are correct. But I would argue that they did pioneer the crazy amount of emphasis that is placed on them in a Souls game. But even if I'm wrong about that, I still think that if you remove this element, you no longer have a Souls game feeling. For that reason, I think this is foundational to the Souls formula. Number 2 is death punishment. What I mean by this is there is some kind of resource or currency, like souls, that is collected and then lost upon death, with the ability to reclaim it if you're able to make it back to where you died. This, I think, is vital to the Souls formula because it is such a unique feeling. The rush you get when you die while carrying a ton of souls and then anxiously make your way back to them only to fall off a cliff or get mauled by a dog is iconic to the Souls genre, to say the least. In fact, if you have played a Souls game, just me mentioning this brings flashes of trauma that is probably causing you to twitch a little. Love it or hate it, it's a staple. Now before we get to the last one, if you're enjoying the video, please leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Your support is much appreciated. Now on to number 3, the storytelling. The style and method of storytelling in the Souls games might be the most unique thing about them. Unlike the other points on the list, I really can't think of anything else in all of gaming that is similar to the FromSoft storytelling method. If you can, please leave a comment. I'd love to hear what you have to say, but nothing comes to my mind. The way that FromSoft creates these deep, engaging storylines and then tells them in such a way that forces you to immerse yourself in the world is absolutely masterful. Now I know for some people this style is far from ideal. There are many that actually hate it. But that doesn't really make a difference as to what makes a Souls-like. That just means you don't like Souls games, and that's fine. They aren't for everyone. No genre is. But this is probably the most unique and genius aspect that the Souls games have to offer. It's also probably one of the hardest things to duplicate. So what does all of this mean? Souls-likes have many aspects that make them what they are. These are simply what I believe are the most important ones. It's worth pointing out that I do not believe that a game is required to have all of these elements to be considered a Souls-like. The ratio needed is something I'm still kind of thinking through. But at least 2 out of 3 seems like a good start. I am sure that there are some who will watch this video and say,
if you don't sneak into Miyazaki's bedroom, steal a vial of his blood, and literally infuse it into the coding, it's not a Souls-like.
But I would say innovation and creativity are important. If we don't leave room for improvement and change in the genre, it will eventually get stale and die out. There has to be a little bend and wiggle room. After all, it's called a Souls-like because it's like a Souls game, not because it is a Souls game. If I wanted to play Dark Souls, I would just go play Dark Souls. But that's not what I want, and I would bet that's not what the community wants. What we want is something that uses the base DNA of the games that we love, but also offers us something new to enjoy. But those are just my thoughts. Let me know what you think in the comments, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.